Did I spook you? Yes, I spooked you. I'm the best. Being scared is, at times, great. Just think of the adrenaline surge you get when watching a classic horror, or when you catch the bus for work after running after it like a crazed goose. And it's the same in wrestling. Just think about all the times when we've lived through the babyface being hunted and stalked by a big bastard who probably wants to disembowel them, and how we reveled when the monster was finally toppled. It's the formula that made Hulk Hogan a megastar. Just ask the majority of his opponents during the rock and wrestling era if you need proof. How we define a monster in wrestling is a larger-than-life, crazed destruction machine, part human, part those angry fighting tree things from Lord of the Rings. By that criteria, the Great Muta, the Boogeyman, and El Torito don't quite make the cut, despite being billed as actual monsters. Monsters are also usually very well protected, so again there will be no sign of Giant Gonzalez here, sorry lads. But before I get started, a few honourable mentions. Awesome Kong, King Kong Bundy, Aja Kong, Donkey Kong, Congo Kong, Jerry the Kong Lawler. So with all that out the way, here we have it. I'm Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic.com, and these are the 10 greatest monster wrestlers. Join us! Number 10, Bam Bigelow. The Beast from the East is one of the most physically imposing wrestlers of all time, and luckily he could back it up in the ring. That flame leotard thing, the tattoo that covered most of his head decades before kids on Tumblr thought it was cool, the mouth half full of teeth, the man looked borderline feral and ready to rip the head off a kitten. But Bam Bam wasn't always booked as your typical monster. Despite his 6'4" frame and near 400-pound mass, Bigelow was very agile, performing cartwheels and moonsaults on the reg, feats which helped make him a babyface fan favourite in his first WWF run. But it wasn't until his time in New Japan in the early 90s that we started to see the monstrous side of Bama, teaming with Vader to presumably murder the entire population of Earth, but settling for the IWGP tag titles instead. Bigelow soon returned to the WWF, this time as a mean son of a gun, weirdly main eventing WrestleMania 11 against NFL star Lawrence Taylor. Bigelow also appeared for ECW, where he routinely threw opponents through whatever structure happened to be nearby, and WCW, where he was a mainstay in their crap hardcore division. Number 9, Bull Meccano. Looking like an anime villain come to life, Bull Meccano is one of the most influential women's wrestlers of all time. Known primarily in the US for her runs in WWF and WCW, Meccano was consistently booked as a crazed powerhouse, a massive blue-haired, lightning-faced stumbling block for any would-be babyface to topple. Bull's New Gen era run in particular is fondly remembered, with her battles against the plucky Alundra Blaze being some of the best women's wrestling Western audiences were going to see without tape trading with Japanese fans. Although standing at a height of just 5'7", her guile from Street Fighter hair and 200-pound plus frame made her a truly intimidating force. Plus, she always looked absolutely manic, her eyes popping out of her skull like she just found a fiver in the street. Western audiences had never seen anything like her. After 14 years of wrestling under her belt, and with mounting injuries, Meccano retired from in-ring competition in 1997 at just 29 years old, and turned her hand to golf instead. I can't be alone in wanting a remake of Happy Gilmore with Bull Meccano drop-kicking Rory McIlroy in the neck, can I? Number 8, Abyss. If you take Mankind, Slipknot, and an angry bear, mix them in a weird violence blender, and give the finished article a big hunk of wood full of nails, then you have Abyss. TNA's resident monster, Abyss was literally given the nickname The Monster, and started leathering everyone on the roster upon his arrival in 2003. Quickly establishing himself as one of the attractions of the fledgling promotion, it wasn't long until he worked his way up the card, leaving a trail of chairs, tables, and thumbtacks in his wake. And if that wasn't enough horror tropes for your liking, he even has a split personality, splitting his time between the meek lawyer Joseph Park and the unhinged psychopathic Abyss. Regardless of whether he was Joey Jojo or Abyss, he racked up victories against a who's who of TNA, AJ Styles, Sting, and Kurt Angle to name a few, while also being a TNA Triple Crown champion, Grand Slam champion, and Hall of Famer. After 17 years with TNA, Abyss hung the mask up, put Janice to bed, grabbed a shirt and tie, and started to work with WWE as a backstage producer. You can almost imagine him sat backstage wanting to throw Vince through a wall. Number 7, The Big Show. Well, it's the Big Paul! Yes, the lad with the fist the size of a horse and a weirdly cheeky little grin is one of the most successful monsters of all time. Bursting onto the scene in WCW as the kayfabe son of Andre, looking to avenge his father's loss to Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania 3, the then Giant was quickly hotshotted up the card, winning the WCW World Heavyweight Championship on his first pay-per-view appearance at just 23 years of age. He's also the only wrestler to have escaped the frankly crap Dungeon of Doom with his reputation intact, so there's that too. Stints in and out of the NWO followed, with Giant either acting as massive muscle for the villainous Black and White, or as a big lovely campaigner for justice. Just look at that baby-like grin, Giant jumped ship to WWE in 1999, aged 27, and one day took the name The Big Show, a name which we still don't quite understand. Once again, Show was propelled up the card, winning the WWF title at that year's Survivor Series. Since then, Show has picked up a reputation for turning heel and face at the drop of a hat, something which has hurt his credibility in the eyes of many. Regardless, he is the only man to have ever held the WCW World title, WWE title, WWE World Heavyweight title, and the ECW World title. And he was in Jingle All the Way. Bonus. Number 6, Yokozuna. The best sumo wrestler to ever come out of Japan, Samoa. Yokozuna is one of the most recognizable faces from mid-90s WWF, coming in during the transition from the rock and wrestling era to the new generation era. With the steroid scandal still ringing in Vince's ears, he realized that he needed to push performers who weren't obviously visibly up to the eyes on roids, whether it was the more naturally athletic-looking performers like Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels, or the big brutes like Yokozuna. Zuna debuted in late 1992 and was instantly thrust to the top of the card, winning the Royal Rumble in 1993 and defeating Bret Hart for the WWF Championship at WrestleMania 9, after being on the main card for less than 6 months, a meteoric rise to the top title that has only been done quicker by Brock Lesnar and Sheamus. Yokozuna's monster credentials were built up in classic manner, squashing everyone who came near him with a devastating bonsai drop. WWF even built a whole publicity event around him with the Body Slam Challenge aboard the USS Intrepid on Independence Day 1993, an event that saw big names in the world of sport and wrestling attempt to slam the big burly beef house, with only the King of America, Lex Luger, able to succeed. No mean feat at all. Number 5, Vader. Imagine an angry hippo. Now imagine if that hippo could punch you in the face so hard you'd poo your pants. Oh, and also, that hippo, he can moonsault too. That is Vader in a nutshell for the uninitiated. The Mastodon was an absolute beast, a truly unique wrestler who was part monster, part hoss, and all fury. Booked like an actual god in WCW and Japan, Vader is one of the scariest wrestlers to have ever laced up a pair of boots, no matter if you're a spectator or an opponent. 6'5" and 450 pounds, Vader built up a reputation as a very stiff worker, going toe-to-toe with the godfather of strong style, Antonio Inoki, causing a riot in Sumo Hall when he battered the legendary head of New Japan to a pulp. Vader's best run in America came in WCW in the early 90s, where he had violent brawls with Cactus Jack and legitimately injured Sting with the Vader Bomb. Vader racked up 3 WCW heavyweight titles during this time, but soon became monster number 1 against Hulk Hogan when the Red and Yellow signed with WCW in the mid-1990s. Big Van Vader soon ended up in WWF, unsuccessfully challenging Shawn Michaels for the WWF title before getting battered by Kane and declaring himself a big fat piece of sugar. Blimey. Number 4, Kane. Right, hands up, who at some point or another has been legitimately terrified of Kane? We're looking at you, Zack Ryder. Introduced during the infamous first Hell in a Cell match at In Your House Bad Blood, Kane was the Undertaker on bath salts, and by gum was he scary enough for us to collectively brown our undies. He was as close to Jason Voorhees as we were to get in the WWE, a massive husk of a man with one weird milky eye and a lifeless stare cold enough to make Glacier shiver. Add into the mix the fact that he wore a big expressionless mask, spoke with a robotic voice box, and threatened to either A, set people on fire, B, hit them with wrenches, or C, set them on fire and hit them with wrenches, Kane had the entire Attitude Era audience hooked. Kane's crowning achievement came after less than a year on the main roster when he defeated Stone Cold Steve Austin for the WWF Championship in a First Blood match. The fact that Austin turned up in just his trunks and Kane was covered head to toe, save for one hand, was as much a tactical move as it was a fashion choice. The rest of Kane's run was up and down, from being a weird associate member of DX, the whole Katie Vick debacle, and his almost psychotic period after first unmasking. Regardless, Kane was always well protected and was always booked as a credible title threat. Number 3, Bruiser Brody. They say that the best wrestling gimmicks blur the lines between fiction and reality and have a semblance of the performer's real personality sewn throughout the gimmick's fibre. By that criteria, then Bruiser Brody is surely one of the best of all time. A genuine lunatic in the ring, Brody was 6'8", looked like a caveman, and was probably about 10 seconds away from legitimately whipping you in the face with a big rusty chain. And if you had a problem with Brody, and therefore a death wish, then chances are he'd make you legitimately regret it. Put simply, without Brody, we probably wouldn't have hardcore wrestling, or at least not in the guise we know it today. Brody blurred the lines expertly between scripted match and shoot brawl, and he just loved throwing chairs, guardrails, and bits of wood he found on the floor at opponents, teammates, and audience members alike. He was fiercely protective of his gimmick to the point of being difficult, and a Brody loss was as rare as teeth on a hen. If you need proof of his notorious demeanor, then find his cage match against Lex Luger in 1987, where Brody stopped selling mid-match and proceeded to death stare a confused Luger, while frantic referee Bill Alfonso had to come up with a way to finish the match before Brody ate the total package. Number 2, Andre the Giant. The word icon gets bandied around a lot in wrestling, but only a few performers can truly live up to the title, such as the 8th wonder of the world, Andre the Giant. A true wrestling attraction, audiences paid money hand over fist to see the massive Frenchman in competition, building up a massive 14-year undefeated streak in the WWF. Despite being able to perform agile maneuvers such as dropkicks early in his career, it was Vince McMahon Sr. who suggested that Andre slow it down and perform as an immovable, methodical monster. The fans ate it up, with Andre becoming one of the biggest babyfaces of the 1970s. However, despite being babyface for the majority of his career, Andre is probably best remembered for his heel run against Hulk Hogan leading up to their legendary WrestleMania 3 bout. It was here that Andre was at his menacing best, instilling genuine fear into Hogan as he calmly tore the Hulkster's shirt and crucifix necklace off without breaking a sweat. The match itself has gone down in wrestling folklore, with Gorilla Monsoon's call of "The irresistible force meets the immovable object" being one of the best known lines of the 1980s wrestling boom period. After Mania, Andre started winding down his career, winning the tag titles with Haku as the Colossal Connection before retiring in 1992. Andre sadly passed away in 1993. Number 1, The Undertaker. If an alien came to Earth and for some reason befriended you, having to explain to them what wrestling is would be weird. Further explaining that one of the best of all time is a 6'10" undead, half-zombie, half-satanic priest cowboy who sometimes rides a motorbike and can manipulate lighting and teleport at will is even weirder. But that is The Undertaker for you. Introduced at Survivor Series 1990, it was assumed that the big undead ginger lummox would be built up to eventually fall to Hulk Hogan's meaty leg drop and then be sent on his way. Truly, no one could have predicted just how phenomenal Undy's career would prove to be. A 4-time WWE champion, 3-time heavyweight champion, and a guaranteed Hall of Famer as soon as he hangs up his hat and trench coat, the Phenom is a once-in-a-lifetime performer, managing to keep his frankly weird gimmick fresh and relevant for almost 30 years. Taker has been very well protected since his debut, whether it's the much-lauded WrestleMania streak or just his week-in, week-out programs. Beating the dead man is always a major notch on anyone's belt. His battles with Kane, Mankind, Shawn Michaels, and Triple H have gone down in infamy, and his satanic Lord of Darkness run against Stone Cold during the Attitude Era is one of the most controversial angles of all time. The man tried to crucify people on air, for Pete's sake. Well, kinda. Let me ask you this: how many wrestlers can make an audience lose their collective minds just by sitting up? That is the power of the dead man right there, the best monster of all time. Thanks for watching. Let us know what you think in the comments down below. You can follow us on Twitter at Cultaholic. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Cultaholic. If you enjoy what we do here at Cultaholic, you can pledge to us on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Cultaholic. And most importantly, don't forget to hit subscribe and join us.